Hey everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Tami. Tami is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. Each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. Our today's guest speaker is Ryan Keane, who is founder and CEO of Korio. Hello, Ryan. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good too. Thank you that you joined us today at our podcast. So I feel like the best way to start is to discover the question, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur, and when did you know that this was the right path for you to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, to be honest, it was never a big plan of mine. I've been part of I've kind of moved away from real big companies early on in my career, and was fortunate enough to get involved with some smaller companies. Real good culture. And then kind of as time went on, I was finding myself in earlier phase companies. I got involved in a great startup in the same space that Korio is in right now. And I think, just as that company grew and grew and, got involved with bigger organizations, you continuously get that itch to start something new and start something fresh. And, there's always a question, do I go and join another startup to do that? Or, is the best course of action maybe, taking something into my own hands. So that was always the assessment. And then probably in, late first quarter of 2021, I kind of really thought about everything I learned over the course of the last decade, and made the decision that I actually had what I thought would take to move forward with my own venture. And so that it was as simple as that. One week it was business as usual, and the next week it was I'm doing my own thing. So
okay, nice. So you already started telling us how you actually come up with the idea of Korio. So could you please tell us a bit more about your background and about that exact moment that you've decided to launch Korio?
Yeah, sure. My background is always seems to be stepping away from the beaten path and keeping things really interesting for myself. So, I went to school for mathematics and had a pretty good job in finance in New York City, kind of doing the thing that I think a lot of people in my college or the New York area did. And I kind of just realized really early on that it just wasn't exciting me. I know some people are definitely driven to follow a path that has worked for other people, and for that gives them some security. I think for me it has the reverse effect. It got me really anxious and feeling like I was missing out on doing something really genuine and pure to myself. So I quit that job and went back to school for my master's in biostatistics. Moved up to Vermont, left New York, a place that I really never lived before, but to me that was interesting. Got my master's in biostatistics, and then to continue on with the push to do something new. After I graduated, my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, we moved out to San Francisco, California. No job, nothing really lined up, and we knew that we would figure out, and it was exciting for us to do something like that. And then lo and behold, I found a great company while I was out there. It was my first job in life sciences. So I was a statistician and doing statistical analysis for pharmaceutical companies to determine whether their drugs that were in clinical development were working or not. Super interesting. And I kept in touch with my boss at the time and founder of that company over the years, and moved into a new space, a technology focused space within life sciences, and that's where I spent the better part of my last 12 years of my life. And in that experience is where I really came to understand how technology is applied in clinical trials and how it's used within the life sciences. And yeah, that's how I built up the experience to really understanding that side of things, and that's what led me to some ideas that I generated with Korio.
Mhm. You already mentioned some of technical stuff about clinical trials and so on. And also, I read some information on your website. But can you explain in layman's terms what Korio does and how it helps with clinical trials?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the drugs that are available and the therapies that are available to people today to use, before they get available to the general population to use within, their health, they go through a series of tests, right, and experiments to verify whether or not they work or not. Um, and phase one is all about determining if a drug is safe, and then as it moves into later phase two and phase three, and that's when pharma companies and biotech companies are validating whether or not the drug is actually going to work according to their plan. Now, a part of that is setting up a clinical trial so that the patients that are involved and enrolled in that clinical trial are randomized into either the treatment that is being investigated or placebo or some other comparative standard of care. So think about, if you're doing like a blind taste test, you have a blindfold on and you're, trying one drink or the next or one food or the next. You want to really keep it to a way where there's no bias that's introduced into what somebody's going to ultimately decide. It's very similar to clinical trials. You're setting something up where you're almost like flipping a virtual coin to understand if a patient's going to get one treatment or a patient's going to get another treatment. So we provide a technology that actually enables pharmaceutical and biotech companies to implement that exact same philosophy, which is have patients come into a clinical trial and make sure that they're randomly assigned a treatment or a placebo or a comparative drug to make sure that the way that the tests and the data is being gathered is really unbiased. And then the other component of what we do is when patients come into clinical trials, we're managing the study drug and that they're going to receive throughout that process. So if you think about, if you're taking antibiotic or whatever, and you need to take it once a day for however many days, clinical trials have that same regimen. You need to take whatever you're supposed to be taking for whatever the clinical protocol calls for. And our system is able to, factor in the patients that are enrolled in the clinical trial, and then, determine based on where they are globally, how to communicate with the drug manufacturers and all the systems that put in place to package and ship the drug, making sure that when a patient goes to a clinical trial site, that there's enough drug waiting for them, and that there's minimal risk of them getting there and it not being there. So it's a very dynamic process of bringing patients into clinical trials, assigning them the right treatment that they're supposed to be getting, and then making sure that as they're in the clinical trial, that the drug is going to be there for them when they need it.
So coming back to Korio and our work, what challenges did you face when building Korio, and how actually did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably have a podcast just on this question, but I'll try to summarize, as best as I can. The startup environment is incredibly challenging, and especially today, right? With the virtual, I think I can understand how much people may like working virtually, and how it provides them a freedom to do lots of different things and not have to commute, But it's a really, really hard thing for a startup. A lot of environments that are virtual, these are existing companies. They're up and running companies. They've got their systems, they've got their rhythm. When you're a startup, you don't have any of that, right? And you're trying to build something with a team, through Zoom calls and Microsoft Teams, and it's really, really difficult. And that was always a challenge for us, because we had a core team of people that we knew from working with each other before, but then we also brought in a lot of new people, new ideas, and these are people we never met before. So to this day, Korio has been in business, for over a year now. There's people that haven't even met each other yet in person that work at Korio. That's unfortunate. But it's a hard challenge, and that's definitely something that's come into play. I think the other challenge for us is, so we're in a space that the market is already, it already exists, that we're not creating a market, we're not creating some new new idea that we're trying to test out. We're in a space that our core team has been in for decades, and there's advantages to that, but there's also challenges. The advantages is that we know the market really well. We know where the problems are. We know why we're doing what we're doing and the stage that we're doing it. The difficulty there is we're so familiar with where our company needs to go and what it needs to be, that sometimes there's an urgency, and there's a discomfort knowing that you're not going to get there overnight, and you have very, very small, deliberate steps to getting there. And you just have to recognize that you're a small company, you're still technically a startup, and despite knowing where you have to be, there's still several steps that you have to go through along the way, and it's really necessary to have these small wins along the way versus have these massive releases that you're trying to do, and probably leaving a lot of things out throughout the process. So that was always a challenge. And then financing is never easy, right? And this year and the last year has been no exception. It's a climate. We were really fortunate to find some great early investors and people that we had good relationships with, that knew us and trusted us and have been super supportive. But it's always something that you have in the back of your head as you're growing, and you're trying to plan budgets, you're trying to do some really cool stuff. Things pop out of nowhere that maybe you didn't envision wanting to spend a little bit of money on. So it's always a challenge to be very disciplined with what you have, and know that you got to make it last. And sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice certain things that you want to do, because you just don't have the capital to go that fast.
Continue discussion of this topic about challengers. It's really hard for founders, for entrepreneurs, to keep motivated themselves. But what is more important, that as a founder, as a leader, you need to keep motivated your staff. So how do you actually stay motivated and inspired to continue what you are doing, and how maybe you have some secrets how you keep motivated your team?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is probably one of the most critical components to life right now. First and foremost, you have to surround yourself with good people that are going to pick you up. They're out there. Again, we've been fortunate with investors, friends, advisors. I mean, everybody's just been so supportive. Everybody, when you're, have a bad day and you're feeling defeated, and you're getting a lot of answers that you don't want to get, there's always a cohort of people that we can call on, and just really, really kind of dive into the details. And that for us has been fantastic. It's been a requirement for us to make sure that we're around good people, and they're just a phone call away, and they're there to support you through everything, and that for us has been great. And then on the other side, you definitely need to know when you are running up against people that maybe they have other priorities going on, and that's just the life that everybody has right now. Everybody's got their own set of challenges, and you have to be careful not to add to their challenges by having them help you with yours. So it's a very fine line of kind of sticking with a group that is always there, and then knowing that there's a group that maybe you gotta leave alone and let them kind of navigate their own challenges as well. Um, I'm a huge advocate of exercise and eating healthy. I think when people get stressed, the I think the knee jerk reaction is to stop doing a lot of really important things like getting outside, getting exercise, eating right, spending time with their family. I mean, these are all things that for me, personally, if I feel stressed and I feel that there's a lot weighing on me right now, the very first thing I do is I pick up my exercise regimen and I do more of it. I'm watching much more about how I eat, how I sleep, and then I mean, it's like spending the time with my wife and my daughter, and calling family. You have to do that stuff. If you let that stuff fall because you're stressed, you're going to make things much worse, and it's hard for people to see that, but I know it to be true. But with all that, I think you still have to have your moments where you fall to pieces and just embrace it. There's going to be those days where I just sit down and I just collapse in this couch right here. I'll just fall and let it happen. You know what I mean? Don't fight it. I'm not a big talker to if I've got something weighing on me, I try to navigate it myself, but I have been making a habit to talk a lot more to loved ones, friends. Even if you want to keep it to yourself, just get it out there, talk to somebody, and everybody kind of picks themselves up. So, but definitely don't fight those moments where it's just like, oh, life sucks right now. I don't know, just let it happen. Have your few minutes and just accept it, embrace it, and get it out of you, and then move on.
Definitely. It's really, really important, because I can understand that as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of responsibilities, and in the day when your head just buzzing with the different ideas, you just sometimes need to sit down at the couch and just relax, make slow breath, and think about just ordinary thing, a day-to-day life. And I believe it will help. Okay, so again, not about challenges, but looking back, what is the biggest lesson you've learned so far as an entrepreneur, and how had that lesson impacted your approach to business?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of in what I've said previously, I think one of the things, there's a lot of things you can really talk about and a lot of lessons learned. For me, I think one of the things to never take your eye off is don't ever stop the process to raising money. I think a lot of times in the early days of Korio, you go through these instances and these exercises of raising some capital, and then you focus completely. You get what you need, and for when you think you need it, and then you stop that and you start to focus in on other things. I think in hindsight, it's much better to just have this normalized approach to fundraising, especially in the early days. If you're looking for angel investors and you're trying to raise money on either a convertible note or a safe note, and you're not quite at the venture capital mark yet, I think it's just always good practice to continue building your network and always be looking for opportunities to add to your capital versus doing things in spurts. And when you do things in spurts, sometimes they come with unnecessary urgency. So I looking back since the beginning of Korio, I think I would have just been a little bit more consistent throughout the process and just always looking to add to things, add to your capital, because you're gonna encounter instances and situations where you could always you weren't expecting to want to make this decision. Maybe this opportunity came up. You could hire this great talent. There's a great idea that we can accelerate. Maybe we're talking with a client or a prospective client about something, and the plan is just always going to change. So just knowing that constantly feeding to your capital is a great thing to do in the early days.
And coming back to Korio, what is your vision for the future, and how actually do you plan to achieve that vision?
Yeah, for us, the clinical trial world is a very complex space. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that are difficult to solve with technology. If you think about outside of the clinical trial world, technology has done a lot of great things to make complex processes or just manual processes automated and capable to achieve through technology. And that's really kind of where we see our vision playing out within the clinical trial world, and really specific to our one direct niche with randomization trial supply management is, really all we're trying to do is we're trying to make complex processes that are people driven. And in some cases, there's only a handful of really, good subject matter experts out there that can do these processes. And we're trying to create a technology that enables a greater amount of people to do something and have the process much more palatable. And that's really key for us is to, if we want to accelerate the process of clinical development and moving medications faster, we have to increase the population of experts on the life sciences side that can do that. And technology has a place to do that. If it's set up appropriately, it can really better empower a wider audience or a wider group to do some really complex things that maybe are not possible today.
So finger crossed, you guys are doing brilliant thing, and I believe it have a great value for the market. And we are about to finish our interview, but there is only 2 questions from my side. So what are some of the most rewarding aspects of being an entrepreneur for you?
Yeah, for us, I think, one of the most rewarding pieces of this is, we set out at the very beginning, before we even hired our first employees, that we want to build a culture and an environment where people can come into Korio and they're better, as time goes on with Korio, and whenever they decide to leave Korio, they can really look back and say, I got better. My life got better. I'm a better engineer. I'm better at fill in the blank. And so for us, that was always critical. Before we even, set out to build a technology, the culture was the very first thing that we established, because I think that is something that companies wait way too long to set. If you're a technology company, your priority is always to build a technology, and then before you know it, you're 2, 3, 5 years into the business and you've hired 100 people and nobody quite knows really what the culture is supposed to be. And by then it's too late. You've built what you're going to build and you have to live with it. So for us, before we even, put together one line of code, it was all about the environment we're trying to build. And, we wanted to really promote that type of culture where we can bring people in and we know that they're going to get better. And we're going to challenge them because they may not come in with the skills that we ultimately need them to, but they're going to develop that because they're capable of doing that. And that for me has been the most rewarding because we've had such great people join us in the early days, and what they're doing right now is remarkable. It's completely, you know, different from what they've done leading up to work with us. And I don't want to, I don't want to make it sound like it's all unicorns and rainbows. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of long days, sometimes working weekends, and but their capabilities and their ability, to what they can do are leaps and bounds higher. And that for us is the most important thing, is to just create this environment where the people around us, their lives are improved. And if we're going to improve the lives of patients in clinical trials, we have to focus on our own employees first, to then really be able to move that needle down the road.
Yes, it's really impressive that your company grow, and it means that your team is growing, that they get better, as you said, they become more skilled. It's really great. And so what, to sum up all of our discussion about entrepreneurship, from your personal past, what advice would you give to first-time entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think anyone who wants to be their own boss and start something, it's a great thing. And I was surprised how many people, when I spoke to them about considering starting my own thing, how many people were supportive, were saying, really rooting me on, saying, of course you should. And I think, if you're contemplating being a first-time entrepreneur, I think it's worth talking to people. It's definitely worth talking to people early on. You'd be surprised, how many people are going to be supportive, and that's a little bit of the kick that you need, is to just get that that reassurance from talking with the market, talking with people, and I would say that after you've done that, you have to think long and hard why you're doing this. Why are you really considering doing this? Because it's gonna be hard, even if market really well, that you're looking to create a solution for. Even if you really feel like you have the skill sets to do it, there are just factors that are out of your control, and you have to be ready for it. If you're contemplating it, be all in, or don't bother. Be ready to leave. If you're employed, get out. It's not something you do on your spare time. You have to be all in, all out, and you're going to see the results based off of that decision you make. And so I think, I just think it's something that it's a great thing to celebrate. It's something that I encourage everyone to do. But you have to be all in, and you have to be able to prepare yourself if you've got a family, if you have certain expectations with finances and ability to have a paycheck and make ends meet, pay mortgage, pay rent, pay whatever. You have to have a plan. You have to know what you're in for, and you should expect some pretty dark days for money making for quite some time. And if you have to make sure you're set up that way. If you're worried about your own personal finances on the side, it's going to impact your ability to run the business. You're going to have enough challenges with your business that you can't have challenges at home. So figure that out. Talk to people. I said always raise capital. Don't do it in spurts. Have that constant dialogue with people. Grow your network. It's a lot easier if you're always having that as a priority versus it being stop and start. Set smaller goals early on. There's always that vision of what you ultimately want to do. But if you're entering a market where there are competitors, just realize that whatever you're trying to differentiate on, you still have to create a product that it's going to deliver the services and the functionality they expect. So be conscious of that. Before you build your spaceship, you can burn a lot of time and capital doing that and not actually even have something that is usable. So make sure you set those smaller goals for yourself and realize you're not you're not going to be able to build the Taj Mahal of whatever you're trying to do overnight. You're going to have to do it in baby steps. Always great to have a network of potential clients and buyers who embrace what you're trying to do. They'll be supportive and they'll find ways to get you, some easy wins and some early customer traction. And my last piece of advice is once you decide to be an entrepreneur, you have a responsibility to other entrepreneurs to pick up the phone and be available for advice, kind of like I'm doing right now. Some of the best conversations I've had have been with, the most successful business owners on the planet. I've had conversations with people that are, so important in the world of, what their net worth is. And you would think that they don't have the time. These are the people that when I've talked to them have made the time and have really, really come down to my level to help me understand what I'm working for. On the other hand, I've tried to talk to some entrepreneurs that they can't be bothered. They're busy looking up. Everybody's always looking up at something else that can help them, and they never look behind them. They never look around them. And that's just a terrible quality in anyone. Forget about being an entrepreneur, but if you're a manager and your idea of success is looking up the org chart and never behind you, it's a terrible environment. You should get out of it immediately. And I think as an entrepreneur, same deal. You have to make time for everything around you, including the people that are trying to learn from your experiences. And no matter how busy you are, you got to do it.
Thank you, Ryan. You've brought a really important topics answering this question, and also during our conversation, it's really crucial for first-time entrepreneurs. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. Really appreciate your time and insights. Actually, we believe maybe you will come back again in the future to our podcast studio. And thank you again for sharing your knowledge with our listeners and your personal entrepreneurial story.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.